I am Lenore Champion, occupational therapist with Durham Public Schools, and I have a slide that just talks about helping students participate fully in their learning activities. We've already talked some about that because Denise talked about having a learning space, and we've talked about routines, and all those things are important. I just am providing additional ideas. One thing you can do is to encourage your child perhaps to blow bubbles before a seated activity, because we know if you do some blowing activities, then you're going to be a little bit more attentive and engaged after that. Another thing you can do is get a cotton ball and a straw and have them blow the cotton ball kind of around the table and play a little game with that. You can also just let them stand instead of sit during a learning activity, or if they're reading, they can lay on their stomach to read. I think, let's see, who was doing reading? Was that you, Stacy? They could read to their dog or their cat if they have one, or they could read to their stuffed animal on a blanket on the floor. You can offer a crunchy or chewy snack during learning. So like, for instance, maybe some raw carrots or some snap peas, maybe some raisins. You can also give them some ice water in a glass or in a sippy cup or a water bottle, and that can also kind of be alerting. You can incorporate movement breaks during learning. So maybe even you do your first then strategy like Krista talked about. First, you're gonna read for 10 minutes, and then we're gonna do a little dance party. There's a movement break incorporated. And then I'll just refer you to the OT YouTube channel that we already talked about, I think, at the initial portion of our presentation. There are many activities for children, and you can just pick one, whichever one you want. The team here has put together a sample activities calendar that is we developed around the theme of gardening, and it's divided into different skills, movement, hand skills, math, etc. And those are, it's many things. You don't have to do everything on the calendar. You can pick and choose. It's also divided into age groups. So if you are able to click on the document, it's at the bottom there are tabs, and you can go to younger elementary, older elementary, or middle school. So we did that. Finally, we've included a home life skills choice board it's really important to learn these life skills and these home skills. And so you can have your child just pick 2 things that they'd like to do in a day, and those things are really good learning activities as well. And with that, I'm handing it to Sherry Broadwright.
I'm Sherry Broadwright. I'm the lead physical therapist. I think I'm going to build on what's been said in the past. The movement breaks are really important, and you can incorporate them in different ways. You can do the first then, you can do 10 minutes here and then something else, but you can also build an obstacle course where they would have to do 5 minutes of math and then hop over into another room and do 5 minutes of reading, and then, walk backwards, or whatever might be an activity that your child might be interested in. They can, the most, one of the most important things for all of our kids, whether they are kindergarten through, preschool through middle school, and even in high school, and whether they are physically dependent or totally independent, are just positional changes. We all change our position a lot when we sit, and our children that cannot change their position independently do need position changes during the day. They don't need to be always sitting in one place. So they could be on the floor, they could be on the couch, they could be in a piece of equipment. If you have a piece of equipment, you can hold them. There's lots of different ways to provide that, and that increases alertness. As I think Denise and Lenore talked about, and engagement. It also prevents, for some of our more involved kids, skin breakdown. So we would definitely want to think about that. The other suggestions I have are movement activities, and this can be in lots of different positions, kind of like Lenore said, standing, walking, if they need adult assistance or caregiver assistance, whoever's with them during the day, you can use that. If they happen to have a walker or some kind of an assistive device, that's great. Animal walks, and down probably toward the bottom of the PowerPoint, there's a page of suggestions of that sort of thing. There's also, if they can't stand up independently, you can put on some music and do some chair dancing, or you can do yoga. There's lots of different ways to adapt activities for our kids who are very able-bodied, or our kids who are not quite as able-bodied. One of the things I've seen in my neighborhood is lots of parents are out drawing with chalk, which you can get for about $1, I think, at the dollar store, because I picked up some, and they'll just do all kinds of paths for children so they have to jump first, and then they have to hop on one foot if they're able. They can walk a line. There's, or if you have a child who is in a wheelchair, you can set up a little obstacle course with just some general, it can be boxes, it can be just some things to go around, and you can be the person that helps them move around the obstacle course, and you can time it and add some math to it, and see if you can do it quicker or slower, that sort of thing. Another fun activity like the chair dancing, Simon Says. Can the child follow, activities that you present? Arms up in the, Simon Says, put your arms up in the air. Simon Says, just make it a game. If they cannot do it independently, once again, the caregiver can help with that. The last two suggestions were some of our children need to work on height changes and changes in surface material. They have difficulty moving from like sidewalk to grass to rocks, that sort of thing. So that's a good thing to practice. It can be an obstacle course as well. And then curbs, if it's safe and you're somewhere where they can step up and step down. If you happen to have stairs at home, either inside or outside, and you can also help them with either helping them by using a railing, and you can put your hand over hand with that, or if they need two hands, one hand on the railing, and the adult might help them. And then if you have the opportunity and you have a ride-on toy, that's a great thing to combine with the sidewalk chalks, and you can make like a little pathway that they would have to propel themselves on the ride-on toy and follow they can walk it or use a ride-on foot.
Thanks, Sherry. And I want to check in with everyone. I know we're right at our time, but we still have a little more to get through. We're almost there. So if you can hang tight, if you need to go, we understand too. And we also want to have time at the end for answering any questions. So I think Tahisha is our last presenter, and then we can get to our questions. Go ahead, Tahisha.
Hi, everyone. Communication is what your kids are understanding and also what they are able to express to you. You've heard a lot of great things about routines and different academic areas and movement. And what I want to encourage you as parents to do is a lot of modeling. So if you have a student who has difficulty speaking, take time to listen to them and then model back what you understand that they're saying. Talk about what you're going to do before, during, and after. So you can plan things. So with the writing activity, you can say your sentence before you write it down. If they are doing a movement or they need a break or they're frustrated, try to narrate or talk about what you see them and encourage them to talk about how they're feeling. If they're doing schoolwork or doing a project or doing something outside, have them talk about what they're doing. They can sequence using more vocabulary before, after, if, and then. They could watch movies and tell you what the movie's about. They can watch a commercial and try to figure out why was it funny. All of that is language. So language is all around. So if you're doing something academic or if you're just having fun, talk about what you're doing. Different students have different modalities. So some are using sign, some maybe are using their voices, some might be using assistive technology, or a combination, total communication, where they're using whatever they can to communicate. Whatever they're using, listen to what they're doing and then give it back to them and add a little bit more. Give them a really solid model. If they want to ask for something, really wait. Don't just give it to them. Have them ask you for it. For our older students, let them do more critical thinking. Ask about the why or the steps, how to. Language is just a part of your natural everyday functioning. So there's language all around. So if you have specific needs for your students, as basic as, being able to say the names of things, then that's where you're gonna model. If you have older students who are having more difficulty understanding what they read, then that's what you're gonna model. Like you reading it and thinking through what you thought about it and how you would answer the questions. So whatever phase they are, if they have a device or if they're signing or if they're speaking, you be the model for the language that you want to help develop in your student. And even if that's, expressing their frustrations to help manage their behaviors, or just learning basic ways to communicate, or that higher language, which is the critical thinking and working through problems, you be the model. Parents are the first teachers in everything, including communication. So wherever they are, model, model, model. And that will be a great help to them. If you are working, with your students at home, you have different teachers and therapists who are working with your students. Ask them, what do you think I should target first? So that was in the chat. What do I do specifically for my kids with all these great ideas? Target what you think is most important. Maybe it's answering questions or asking questions or just being able to identify my emotions during this time or throughout the day. Make that your target and just practice that, model that. When you're frustrated, talk out loud and narrate your life. Oh, I forgot that. Oh, I can't believe it. I was so confused. Well, now I'm going to do this. You're just modeling for them. You're thinking and with language. So it can be complex. It can be really simple, but just pick a target and model that language for your student. Use the device, learn it with them, do the signs you know, model with your oral language, but just model for them so that they have a practice partner. Communication requires a partnership, somebody who's giving and somebody who's taking. So be a partner for your students so that they can have someone to practice with, and it'll be oh so natural. Don't feel like you have to fill up the time with language though. Sometimes language is just taking in something and then expressing your opinion about it after. So I really want parents to try to utilize any quiet time as they can, letting kids read by themselves to their stuffed animals, writing something, doing a project outdoors. The language can come before and after that too. So they get some quiet time, you might have some separate time, they get to be more independent, and then after, they can talk about their drawing. Or before, they can plan what they're gonna do in that garden. There's the language time, and then you can have quiet and individual independent time so that the day is not so full, that you have some flexible time. But just do the practice. Science already shows that parents naturally are giving examples to their kids. So talk with your therapist or teacher about what you want to target the most to give you some direction, and then do what science says parents do best. Give the model. It's a natural part of your day. So don't stress, just be intentional. And I hope that will help you with communication with everybody, especially your kids at home.
Thanks, Tahisha. I just want to do one more screen share and show you some final resources that we have for you when you get access to this PowerPoint if you don't already have it. These are just all hyperlinks that hopefully you'll find helpful, with some social emotional learning, stories, digital libraries, support with handwriting, movement, mindfulness. You probably have some great resources of your own that you could share with us that you've used. Again, another page, Tar Heel Reader has books of all abilities and levels, also read out loud online. It's a free. And then Durham County Library is doing some, having some digital text available too, which is another in-community resource. These are gross motor physical activities that Sherry referenced during her presentation about movement. So again, just some great links that you can check out. And I'm going to stop share. And I know we're over our time, but we would like to entertain any questions for those of you who are still here, if we can help.
And if I could just take the time to say the communication slide is also hyperlinked according to grade. And some of those websites are already in English and Spanish. You can just click the tab and it will translate the page for you for different age groups.
Yeah, everything that's in blue is going to be a hyperlink for you. I know we've been answering some of the questions in the chat too as we've been going. So I'm not sure how to, if there are some that we haven't gotten to that we can address now verbally.
So I have allowed you now to unmute yourself. If you do have questions, you can speak up. I've also kept a record of all the questions so I can make sure they all get answered. But I'll let y'all talk for yourselves now. So you should be able to unmute yourselves.
So I think I want to answer, Stacy, you had, I think, referenced a friend who has a child at a charter school. And and I think Wendy answered that, charter schools should also be providing, if the child is eligible for special education, should be providing special education services. So that's a whole nother issue if that's not happening. But it is contingent upon the child being eligible and having that IEP, that individualized education program. But I think feel free to share this information. There's tons of stuff on the web. I think it's trying to figure out stuff that's of quality on the web. Krista, I think you were gonna probably even try to answer this in the chat. Do you wanna address the one about DSA?
Sure, and I'm hesitant to give specific strategies for specific students that I don't know, but in general, I'm trying to read the question here. So if you're looking for ideas to support your specific child, the teacher may be the best resource for that. They know your student and they may be able to provide some supports that are specific because they know your student. A lot of these things apply, although sometimes some of the examples we use look elementary, they're going to apply middle through high. So, you know, if I had a high schooler, they have a schedule and they'd probably develop it with my supervision and it would be written and they would follow it every day. I think there's a comment about things seeming random and haphazard. It's hard. It's hard to structure the day and stick to it each day. I will only say that it gets easier once you start it and you actually stick to it every day. You know kids, right? You don't do it once and they're likely to think you're not going to do it again. And, oh, we got off schedule today and so I'm going to get off schedule tomorrow. If you as the adult stick to the schedule and reinforce it in positive ways, they're more likely to stick to it. And then I think you can build more activities when you do have a structure and routine. I think a lot of the activities can change throughout the day, but helping with that structure and the schedule, I cannot express that enough. I literally don't know how I'd get throughout my day without a schedule for myself and my child. And it's easier for me to structure activities when I know, you know, for example, right now I'm on a Zoom meeting. So our time together is going to be at this time and I can point to it on the schedule. And so he knows what's coming up next. I think that's really, really important. But it is, I'm not going to say it's not work. I mean, it is work. It's work to do parenting at home as well as being the teacher at home and trying to stick to that schedule and structure. I can only say it gets easier as you do it and get in the habit of doing it. If you get in the habit of the routine and the schedule, it'll be much easier to stick to it. I'm trying to think, were there any other ones related to that?
I wanted to comment for a parent who was talking about their 3 teenage boys and the attention that it takes to be part of the Zoom classes while you are trying to do that too. And of course, we don't know your students and you're going through a lot of like trying to print things out. When a student is already active like that, I think you have to try to hone in their focus. And so this might not work for your boys, but try it for a week and see what does happen. Just take the regular paper and then have them focus on one thing for that lecture. It could be an academic thing, or it could just be a thing to keep them focused. You can fold a paper so that you have 4 boxes and they could keep track of how many times their teacher says this one word, or they could write down their questions or their feelings about what the teacher is talking about. Or not any words, they can draw during the lecture as long as they're drawing the thing that the teacher is talking about. So for somebody who has attention deficit disorder, hyperactivity disorder, you want to hone in their attention and their focus. So that could be a fun way in mixing it up so that they're focusing on different things and that they're having to use their hand and their mind, but they're listening into something. I mean, you have to try different things and be flexible. So you want to have a plan, but then you have to be flexible, but you don't know what works unless you try. So that could take some of the pressure off of you by using some things like that and then just giving them an assignment other than what they're doing in class, just to see if they can focus, if it does help them and make a difference. And then of course, what Krista is talking about, trying those routines and giving structure. I think with parents, try to give an intent to what your children are doing. So you might not just give them activity, you might tell them ahead of time. We do this in therapy too. And sometimes, you know, some research says it helps them to improve more. Tell them what the target is. It doesn't always have to be a secret. Sometimes you tell them, this is what we're trying to do at the end, or a specific strategy. I just want to see if you can listen for this word, or if you can use this word all day. You know, for a preschooler, let's see if you can see happy faces all day on the TV, on a bag, in a magazine, because you're working on the emotions in that one word. There's lots of things, but give an intent to the thing that you're doing so it doesn't feel so random. And it can be a small thing so they can focus on it. So it's very general, but you do have to, there is a kind of trial and error. And sometimes we have to be more consistent with things. That's the routine. So try it with some fidelity, but don't beat yourself up about it if it doesn't go so well. Just try it again, try it again. That's usually how we see students learn. And then if anything else fails, give them an experience. Their memories are usually tied to an experience. So let them experience something and then see if they can do something with that experience after. Sometimes that's the connection that kids really need. So give them an experience and a focus, and then see if that helps ground what you're trying to do with them.
It helps too for the Zoom and the Googles. They are hard, especially when you have multiple students on there. If you go over the Zoom expectations or the Google Chat expectations before your child sits down, if they're written right next to the computer, and sometimes we do what we call mini to-do lists of, like Tisha said, things that they need to do while they're in that Zoom meeting that they could be checking off while they're doing them. Another thing I'd even ask is to check in with the teacher and see if she can give you, 5 bullet points of what's going to be in this Zoom meeting today, so that your child can have that in advance and be looking for that and know, here's what we're starting with, here's what comes next, here's when it's over. Because sometimes those meetings can get intense with all the people on the screen. So those are some other strategies that may be helpful.
I think it would be a great takeaway that I'm thinking of right now is if the district could do some parent survey towards the end of this to get what was the parent experience, what worked well and what those challenges were, because we're going to have more remote learning, right? There's more days that are going to be built in the calendar. And then there's this possibility of when school starts again, any resurgence that might require us being out. So being better prepared next time to understand the experience of the parent in the home.
Another thing I was going to add is that with those teenage boys and finding out things they're interested in, beyond I know it's hard to maintain the attention on the Zoom lessons and things like that, but other learning experiences, we talked quite a bit about experiences there might be in the home for learning for young children, but for older children, particularly, I think many transportation related things can be of high interest to them. How to change the oil in the car, how to check the oil to know if you have need of oil, how to change the chain on a bicycle, or whatever kinds of ways they want to get around in the world, how to read a bus schedule. All those kinds of things may be items that are learning experiences that would be very motivating for a teenager, that this is a time when those kinds of things might be able to be focused on and give them a learning experience they might not have otherwise.
And we had a question in Spanish that I wanted to make sure we got it answered. So one of the parents asked, how much time should the teachers be teaching or giving classes, and how many days a week right now?
That's a great question. I think what our experience has been is that it has been different from school to school and even from teacher to teacher within the school. I think to fully understand what has been stated within the school, I would ask the school principal because we have experienced that too. All of the different teachers and parents we've talked to it looks so different. I think there have been some district guidelines in terms of teachers having, I think, 2 hours of office hours per day, but then outside of that with actual instruction in groups, it's kind of contingent upon that teacher in that school. So definitely ask the building principal if you want to know for sure what the expectation is for the teachers. And I think someone had a question that was submitted earlier about if you're having a hard time as a parent just supporting that Google Classroom learning, what do you do about it? What can you expect from the teacher? And I think, again, don't hesitate to express what's working for you and what's not to the teacher. And hopefully that teacher will be receptive and be able to work with you and adjust. And if it's accessing Google and supporting the classroom, whether it's, this too much virtual format versus how can I get more hands-on, hopefully the teacher will be responsive and walk you through that and provide you with resources that you need. Because I know even some of the content, depending on the grade level that your child is in, or if they're in specific courses, can be very daunting when we get into some of the more challenging academics. But don't hesitate to reach out to the teacher. And if you're not getting the response that you feel is helpful, ask to speak with the building principal or someone else that can help you at the school level. You have a right to do that.
So there is a question in the chat about student who might need services now. Is that possible? Specifically speech. And I will just say that we aren't providing the direct services the way a student had services prior to our closure. It has been through a supplemental process, but if they were receiving services from a speech therapist, you should have had contact from the speech therapist in ways that they can support your student in this interim.
The other issue is if the child has not yet gone through the process of referral and evaluation and identification, but a parent feels that the child has a disability or may require specially designed instruction, parents can still make referrals to the school team. The problem's going to be, if the team accepts the referral, we can't do any testing of students right now because we require that face-to-face. But if the child did have the IEP and got those services, they should definitely be getting support and hear from that speech therapist.
And our therapists,
great things happening.
Our therapists are, and we've gotten some parent feedback. So if your teachers or therapists have reached out to you and you're interested in it, do take advantage of it. We've had some really great feedback from some parents who feel like that coaching that they get from the therapist is very valuable. Because they get to carry on those skills beyond just that screen time, but they get to see their child and what they're doing and how to help them practice those skills. So you have to choose what's the priority for your family and your life during this time. But if a therapist is in contact with you, really ask for those practices, how to model, and strategies, especially for our older students. It's not just the what, but if I'm in this situation, what should I do next? And for our little ones, it's the what kind of practice do I need? So if you are already in contact with a therapist or a teacher, use that time to communicate. And if you said, you know what, right now I don't want those services right now or that support right now, it still doesn't mean that you can't reach out to get some extra help. And so just like Dr. Bell said, use those resources to see now what kind of support that you can get. But for every parent who wants it, we're providing those regular supports for the students while school is closed. So we're in contact.
Peggy's question was specific. If your son gets speech and the therapist is saying it's not possible, probably need some follow-up on that. If your child's attending Durham Public Schools, the speech therapist should have developed a support plan with you. I've heard about speech therapists joining the regular Google Classroom, doing individual stuff with kids, doing group stuff. So that response concerns me, but I would definitely dig into that. And Tahisha can help follow up.
Yeah,
she works with all the speech therapists.
Because we might not be calling it therapy, right? But there are many SLPs who are giving direct supports. They're trying to make sure that you know how to support your students, and they're supporting teachers. So it might not look the same, but there are still supports that are happening and check-ins that are happening. So please, Ms. Peggy, give a contact to me and Dr. Bell, and let's see what your specific situation is.
And one last statement, if you happen to be a family that was not in a place when this closure happened, that you could take that on with asking for help, but now you want your child to engage in some sort of supplemental support and are wanting to get that initiated because it hasn't been, just you can reach out to probably anybody on as a part of this team or call. I'm sure Ms. Gibson and her folks could certainly connect you with us as well if needed, so that we can get things going in at least the remaining time that there is for this school year.
See, for Bethany too, same thing. We can help problem solve with you individually on that. And I know time, Krista and Angie, if you guys want to, should we kind of?
We can close. I did want to translate one more. This is more of a comment, and so you can all. This is a nice way to end, I think. So someone said this was really wonderful, but that they wish there had been more time for each individual therapist and specialist to share more information. So they hope that maybe there'd be another time for another meeting where we could get into specific therapeutic areas. So that's maybe a nice ending, because I think we all left wanting more. This was awesome. You did such a great job. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you, parents and other practitioners, for joining us. I think this was really helpful to everyone. So thank you. And lots of nice positive comments in there too.
Yeah, we would be happy to do anything and target any specific areas. So we'll work with you guys on what that next step might be. And thank you, parents, for joining. Appreciate your participation and all your questions.